Hi everyone, my name is Khadra Berger and I'm a licensed social worker.
And I'm Rita Krill, a pelvic floor physical therapist. And together, we are Empower.
We will be interviewing specialists that will educate and empower you about your physical and mental health.
Whether you're navigating a personal health challenge or seeking to better understand your body, we are here to help you advocate for yourself with knowledge and confidence. So, join us on this journey. Welcome to Empower.
Hi everybody, so nice to see you guys. Thank you for joining Jackie, we're really excited.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Empower. We're so thrilled to have Jackie Silver as our guest on today's show. Jackie Silver is a registered dietitian and the founder of the Jackie Silver Nutrition, a virtual private practice specializing in supporting neurodivergent kids, teens, and adults with ADHD, autism, and intellectual/developmental disabilities. Her team offers neurodiversity-affirming, nonjudgmental, and weight-inclusive care. Jackie earned her Master of Health Science in Nutrition Communication from Toronto Metropolitan University and has specialized training in mindful eating and sensory-based feeding therapy. She and her team support clients across Ontario, Canada, and several U.S. states, including New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, helping with meal planning, selective eating, food aversions, digestive health, chronic disease management, and much more. In her free time, Jackie enjoys rock climbing, yoga, Pilates, swimming, traveling, visiting museums, and spending time with family and friends. Without further ado, we welcome you, Jackie Silver, to our show.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, just hearing your intro, by the way, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I had recently come across ARFID a little bit more in my work as a therapist, and I'm like, I'm really excited. And I'm curious what inspired you to become a dietitian in the first place.
So I was always interested in health and fitness. I was born with a physical disability. So my whole life I've had to really be careful with, well, not be careful, but be cautious about my eating and my exercising in order to maintain my functionality and independence and mobility. So I've always been interested in health, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So my first undergraduate degree was in kinesiology because I really am interested in fitness, but I didn't think that becoming a PT or an OT would be good for me and my physical abilities. So I looked into different careers and nutrition seemed great because you could combine exercise with it. There's a lot of variety. There's a lot of creative ways that you could work in the field. It's not just clinical. You could work in nutrition marketing or nutrition communication. So I like that it had a lot of variety. And then in my master's degree, I did 10 months of dietetic internship rotation, and my community rotation was working with Special Olympics Ontario. So I got to work with athletes with intellectual and developmental disabilities, running cooking classes, sport nutrition workshops, food demos, creating resources for them. And it was really a phenomenal experience. And it was there that I started to see how big of a need there is to support this community, because I was the first nutrition student they had ever had. They had 10,000 athletes. And I was like, these athletes deserve to be fueled and treated like athletes. So, and I still really believe strongly in that. So then fast forward a couple of months, I finished my last clinical rotation 3 weeks before the COVID shutdown. And I always wanted to start my own business, but I thought like I'll get a job, maybe at a hospital or something to get started. But then there were no jobs because it was COVID and I had all this free time on my hands. So I was like, oh, why not? I'll start a business. And so I did. And I didn't really know what I wanted to specialize in. Originally I wanted to work with people with spinal cord injuries or cerebral palsy, physical disabilities, but that just never really took off. And then when I was making a listing on this healthcare directory, they had autism and ADHD as like conditions, quote unquote, to check off. So I checked them off because I was like, oh, I work with Special Olympics athletes. And then I just started getting all these requests because my name showed up first on this website because nobody else was specializing in this area. And so I saw, wow, there's a really big need here. I'm going to go all in and focus on this. And I decided to niche down and haven't looked back.
Jackie, that's amazing on so many levels. First of all, the fact that, as you mentioned, that because of a physical disability that you were experiencing, it inspired you to help others and really like created this incredible niche career for you where you're doing so much good in the world. And that's like just incredibly inspiring. So thank you for sharing your story with us.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. So now I know that in various professions, not all nutritionists are created equally. And I know that there's lots of different degrees. And in the pelvic floor world, there are PTs who've been to 10 courses and PTs who've been to one class. So pardon my ignorance in your field, but when someone is looking into seeing someone to help with nutrition, what do the different names mean? What is the different levels of training? What should people be looking out for when they're trying to get help?
Yeah, this is a great question because, and I've gotten it so many times into this day, people are still confused by it. So look for someone that has the title registered. That's the first thing. They might have the title RD, Registered Dietitian. It might be RDN, Registered Dietitian Nutritionist, or it might be CDN, Certified Dietitian Nutritionist. It should have the word dietitian in it. But anyone who just calls themselves a nutritionist or a holistic health coach or a holistic nutritionist, those terms are not regulated. So similar to what you were saying, Riva, like they might have taken a 2-week course and call themselves a nutritionist. And many of them unfortunately have humongous followings on social media, and people are like really relying on their advice, which is quite scary, even though a lot of it is not evidence informed. So to become a registered dietitian, it's really thorough. You have to do an undergraduate degree in an accredited program in nutrition. And then you have, you don't have to do a master's, but it is recommended now, a master's degree in nutrition that combines with a 10-month dietetic internship rotation, where you get rotations in clinical, community, public health, all that. And then you have to write a licensing exam. And then you have to maintain 75 continuing education credits per 5-year cycle. So you have to really keep up with your learning and keep up to date.
Great. No, thank you for sharing. I think that's so important to know because, like we said, we're ignorant. I'm not in the field. I don't know what's needed, but I know obviously as a therapist, what's regulated. We have the continuing education to make sure we're up to date. So it's good to know. I'm happy that we're covering it so that anybody who's listening who might be looking into it knows what they're looking for, knows what quality is and how to find someone who's qualified. Because as we all know, misinformation can be really, what's the right word? I'm losing it for a second. It could be harmful.
And not all, but probably, hopefully, most dietitians are providing evidence-based care.
Can you actually clarify for the people who are listening who might not know what is evidence-based care?
Yeah, so recommendations based on nutrition guidelines that have used lots of large-scale studies to really find out what the best guidelines are that result in improvements. Yeah, recommendations that are based in quality research studies and not just like a sample of 5 people, for example.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So obviously we have the Jewish holidays coming up and everybody knows around holidays, right? There's a lot of food, especially at Jewish holidays. It's like the weekend, which we have our meals and Sabbath, and then it's the holiday, then it's Sabbath again. So we're going to have a lot of food going around. And obviously a lot of the conversations, especially among women, like when you're outside and you're talking, is how much I ate, how bad it is, and I had this cake and now I have to diet after the holidays and not eat for the next month. And if I have this cake, now I cheated, so I can't eat the next thing that I want. And obviously this comes up a lot, and the concept of diet, the word diet a lot comes up, and we're curious, what are your thoughts about diets? Are they healthy, unhealthy, and even maybe diet culture overall?
Yeah, so let's say diet culture. So a lot of those terms that you were saying, like I cheated or I did bad or I have to starve myself now, that's all from societal messaging that we get from diet culture. And so my advice would be for going into the Jewish holidays and in general is like, we have a lot of unlearning to do, unlearning years of what diet culture has taught us. Diet culture has moralized food. Cheating, like I cheated. There's no such thing as cheating with food or like I did bad. There's not like you didn't commit a crime by having an ice cream. That's not a crime. So
nope.
We have to unlearn that. So I often recommend trying to veer away from using the language good, bad, cheat day, punishment. And encourage you to think more of food. All food is food. It has more neutral value, and there are foods that are more nourishing and foods that might be less nourishing, but none of them are bad.
I think it's such a good point that you're bringing up, like the value that we equate between food and our sense of self. Are we good? Are we bad? Do we get punished now? And I think that obviously as a therapist, and I'm sure even as a dietitian, we know that the way that we talk to ourselves really influences our relationship with ourself. Like our thoughts affects our feelings, which affect our behavior. And we know that obviously on just a side tangent of eating disorders is usually when our emotional sense of well-being is attached to or intertwined with our eating habits and how we treat ourselves when we eat, and also the relationship between obviously emotions and food, which is if I feel bad, I eat, right? That's another side topic, but I think what you brought up is such an important topic. Could you tell us a little bit more, if you can, what do you see as someone who obviously works with people coming in and looking to change their ways of eating? What negative consequences have you found of diet culture and using those words of cheating and bad and punishment?
Yeah, well, a lot of shame for sure. A lot of like perfectionistic tendencies and being really hard on oneself. I've seen many clients who are very hard on themselves if things don't go according to plan. And I also see it coming from parents talking to their teens and commenting about their teenagers' bodies and how that affects the teens really negatively as well.
Speaking of which, I actually was a teen who once upon a time had a very unhealthy relationship with food. Unfortunately, my parents did not shame me for it. I had gone on a summer program and wasn't having the best time and did what Khadva referenced, the concept of like eating one's emotions. I just ate my way through the program and came back, I believe it was around 15 pounds heavier. Fortunately, my parents did not shame, they didn't draw any attention to my body, but my doctor sure did, and some of their friends did. And I just remember thinking, like, I do not feel like I have a healthy relationship with food. How does one, especially teenagers with parents who are making comments, which thankfully I did not have to experience, how does one develop a healthy relationship with food?
Yeah, that's a big question. I would say it starts with working on noticing the language that you use around food and reframing it. So, for example, one of my clients, she used to like try not to eat any sugar during the week. And then Friday nights, her and her husband would have cheat night where they would have ice cream, brownies, and watch a movie. So I said, okay, can we reframe that and call it something else besides cheat night? And she said, in the next session, she came back and she's like, Jackie, I changed it to vintage movie night. And that has made all the difference. It was amazing. She said, like,
I love that.
now it's not about the food. It's about the excitement that comes with choosing a vintage movie. And we get excited to watch it. And yeah, we have the food too, but I don't see it as something that I can only have one day a week. So that, I thought that was really powerful, that reframe. So yeah, and also as I touched on earlier, reframing the bad versus good food, also focusing on positive health effects that are unrelated to weight. So how much energy you have, how mobile you are, having like healthy cholesterol levels and healthy A1C blood sugar levels. Go have regular digestion, not feeling bloated, having focus, concentration, just yeah, like feeling good, feeling nourished. There's so many other positive health benefits that come with making habits with eating or movement, whatever it may be, that are unrelated to weight. So if we focus more on the weight, we're just going to get stuck on that. And if that's the only thing that you want to change and it doesn't change, but all these other positive effects happen, then you're just going to still be focused on that. And that's going to keep perpetuating that negative relationship with food. So if we shift a little bit to these other positive effects, that can help to improve our relationship with food. And yeah, and I would say looking also on social media or on podcasts from people that promote body neutrality, people that dispel diet culture myths, that could also be really helpful. Yeah, I would say to start with those.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. That's
Mhm.
awesome.
I love that you brought the body neutrality to clarify for people. From my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie, it's the same approach you have to food, right? Food is just food. It's neither good nor bad. And it's there to give you energy, right? In different ways and different nutritional things. So our body also regardless of weight, it's an acceptance of our body. Our body is a vessel that obviously, you know, holds us and who we are, and having almost like an acceptance of our weight, meaning acceptance, sorry, of our body, loving our body, regardless of the weight, regardless of where we're at. Is that correct?
So very close. So with body neutrality, like we don't have to love our bodies. That would be more body positivity. But yeah, it's feeling neutral, like you had said, neutral about our bodies, perhaps accepting where they're at, not shaming ourselves for not loving our bodies. We don't have to love them all the time, and just seeing it more neutral.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate that. Okay. So obviously you touched a little bit on the approach of what brings healthy eating. And I wanted to know if you had anything more you wanted to share on the topic of healthy eating that you felt was an important, like either negative information or approach or mindset that you use or skill that can help people shift from like that diet culture to a more healthy relationship with food.
Yeah, so I would say focus on sustainable behavior changes, these micro changes that you can actually sustain in the long term that are going to be beneficial. So like I didn't properly answer your previous question about what's my opinion on diets. So I'm not so into dieting. I'm not really into counting calories or macros or all that. I just find it has a lot of negative mental health effects, and most people cannot stick with it. And it's just not healthy. And I'm not putting anyone down who it works for them. If it works for them, great. I would say for a lot of people, it just doesn't work. So I say try to focus on things that you could add, adding nourishment, small tweaks that are going to be sustainable. So for example, like if you're trying to get more fiber and you're already eating yogurt, can you add some chia seeds or flax meal to that? Can you switch to like a whole wheat pasta or a lentil pasta instead of a white pasta to boost the fiber and the protein? If you're already drinking coffee in the morning, but you're not drinking enough water, can you habit stack that with a glass of water? If you find like your lunches are not really satiating and you get full pretty quickly, is there a protein that you could add to that? If you're getting hungry mid-afternoon, can you try having a little snack? If you're skipping meals, can you try to set reminders to eat something? Yeah. Does that make sense? Those micro?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the difference is like there's no restricting going, right? And there's no, I mean, obviously the overeating, usually when people are talking about diet, they're talking about restricting and not overeating. But obviously it's finding that balance that works for you.
Yeah. And it's also more sustainable and practical.
Makes sense.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned about the counting calories as not being like the approach that you subscribe to, and not making any foods like bad foods or off limits, cheat foods. This is just a funny story from when I was a teenager and didn't have a healthy relationship with food. So I decided to just not eat donuts. I was like, I am not eating. And the amount of self-esteem that I got from being able to be that disciplined was ridiculous. But what was even more ridiculous was that I'd been replacing all those donuts with the reduced fat muffins at Dunkin' Donuts, which I discovered contained double the amount of calories of the donuts that I was not eating. So go figure.
It's really funny. It's like soda, right? I feel like there's a thing that diet soda is not like necessarily healthier. It has a different sugar inside. So it's just interesting. Even the marketing, diet soda, right? Like, just think about like much of our marketing. But it's actually funny because I went to a comedy show and one of the comedians was talking about how when it's gone extreme, even on the positive end, when your healing becomes extreme and you start getting upset at yourself. Like, I didn't journal today, and you're like berating yourself, and then you're like, you need to kind of take it back. Which I don't know why it popped into my head as you were saying, because you were talking about the muffins. But like, I think that's also an important point for people to remember. It's like, even on the healing could come perfectionism. Even on the doing healthy could come all those habits. So even like, if you notice that, working on that outside of obviously a dietitian, if you need to, with a coach, mental health professional, or even on your own, to work through it, because sometimes our obviously tendencies for perfectionists, we do everything perfectly, even our healing. So being able to kind of be mindful of that too. So when you're doing the healing journey, you do it with balance and self-compassion and grace for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally. So my next question, Jackie, I know we've talked about people calling food bad and that's bad, so we're not going to do that anymore. But sometimes we hear other people talking in those ways. For example, I work with teenagers who have bowel and bladder issues. And of course, we discuss what they're eating, what they're drinking. And at times I hear comments expressing the desire to be skinny or concerns about eating bad foods or the concept of like, I now need to go on a 3-mile walk because I just indulged in whatever it was that I ate. The concept of connecting exercise to food as the price to be paid for eating the food.
Mm,
So when we
yeah.
hear people speaking in those ways, especially younger, more impressionable people who are trying to shape these healthy attitudes that you're discussing, what are good responses that we can say, especially if they're not our child, so we're not trying to parent them, but we do want to help them create these healthy relationships with food and with their body.
Yeah, exactly. I might recommend telling the parents that you've noticed this. That is something that I do, especially if I'm quite concerned. And also, just on a side note, I'm really not a fan of people commenting on bodies in general. It's just not appropriate. Even if like someone like looks thin and looks great, just like don't comment on their body. That's one thing. And then I would say, like, if they bring up that comment, like, oh, I have to go on a 3-mile walk now to burn off what I ate. How about you say, like, what are some other benefits that you notice from going for a walk? Do you notice your mood list? Do you notice maybe your bowels improve? I don't know. Like, you enjoy getting fresh air. Like, just to focus on the other benefits of going for a walk aside from burning calories. And yeah, I mean, if you notice that they're shaming themselves, I would say, like, sometimes I'll say, well, what would you say to a friend who said that to you? Like, I bet you would never say to them, oh, I was so bad. You were so bad. You ate that cookie. You're so bad. No, we would never say that to our friend. So to bring that gentleness and compassion to our friend, to ourselves. But yeah, it's really a big topic and it's complicated, and teenagers are really at this impressionable age where they are at risk for eating disorders and disordered eating, especially now with the rise of Ozempic. So I would say it's good to perhaps bring it to a parent's attention and maybe ask if they're seeking mental health counseling about it, if they think that would be appropriate for their teen. Yeah,
Great.
does that answer?
Love those suggestions. Yeah, very helpful and thought-provoking.
Good.
Yeah. So a little bit, you're taking a segue off this topic. Obviously, as a mental health professional, I'm very passionate about doing what we can to improve our mental health. And I think that includes what we put in our body, like what we are, what we eat kind of thing, but not to the literal, obviously, but really that what you put in our body can affect mental health. How sugar, caffeine can increase anxiety, how I've heard, I don't know, so it's not evidence-based as far as I know, because I didn't do the research, but I heard somewhere like protein is good for anxiety in the morning. There's just different things that to be mindful of. And I'm curious if you, just to give some information to our audience, like how do the food we eat and our eating habits affect our mental health functioning? Even just like getting proper nutrition and proper meals every day, hydration, all of that. And whatever you share, I'm excited to hear.
Yeah, so this is also a big topic. I've given like an hour-long presentation about the relationship between food and mental health. So I'll briefly touch on the connections. So using food as a coping mechanism for stress or boredom, that's really connected to mental health. And there are ways to manage that or cope with that. Also, when somebody has severe anxiety or severe depression, they might lose their appetite and then not eat. And then as a result, they have even less energy and are more likely to not want to get out of bed. So coming up with systems to be able to still feed themselves when they are going through a depressive episode, and they know that typically that's when their appetite gets shut down, that could be helpful. And then there are also studies on certain diets for mental health. And this is like still an emerging area. So for example, there's a protocol called the MIND diet, where it's basically a Mediterranean diet, which is focused on a lot of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, fish, beans, nuts, seeds, plant-based proteins, a little bit of chicken, a little bit of red meat. It's like how people in the Mediterranean eat. And there's been a lot of research on the Mediterranean diet and its effects on many different health conditions, and they're starting to study it on depression and anxiety. So there is some research showing that it's promising that it could be that this diet is more anti-inflammatory, and maybe a depressed brain has more inflammation. So that could be why it helps. It could be that it has more antioxidants, or that it's helpful on the gut, and that can in turn help the brain. There's also like this big gut-brain connection, but I would say it's still unclear. And there has to be many factors involved. Like I don't believe that just changing diet alone is going to help anxiety and depression. It's a multifaceted approach.
Right, for sure. But I do know, let's say caffeine, which is more of a stimulant-based like reaction. So for people who have anxiety, or for clients who have anxiety, a lot of times I'll tell them to cut back on how much caffeine they're taking in, because it's basically high energy, and when we're adding a stimulant, we're cranking that up. So, and obviously sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but for a lot of people, they find that they're much calmer and finding alternative ways to get energy than coffee. 5 cups of coffee a day, chugging to get through your day might be a better alternative, or things like that. So I tell my clients all the time, listen to your body after you eat. How do you feel? How's your mood? Even just noticing those changes can help give you a guideline of what makes you feel better.
Yeah.
And what might increase anxiety or increase low mood or low energy. Also, like there are certain foods that might bring down your energy or things like that. So yeah, thank you for touching on it. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So Jackie, I think it's so cool that thank you for sharing your story earlier about how you came to specializing in individuals who are neurodivergent. I guess it's kind of like I didn't even realize that was a specialty within nutrition and your field, but that's what people say about me when they find out I do pelvic floor therapy, because no one knows that it's a specialty until they meet me. So I guess, what are special considerations when working with the neurodivergent population? Can you flesh out that for us a bit more? We'd love to learn more about what that's like.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, first of all, I would say it is really rare specialty. Like to this day, I don't know any other dietitian who does kids to adults who are neurodivergent. There's a few who will just work with people with ADHD who have eating disorders, or some who are only ADHD adults, or only autistic kids, but nobody that really does the full gamut. And I haven't really seen anyone who works with autistic adults. So yeah, it is still really rare, but there's a really big need, I could tell you that. So with neurodivergence, some areas to keep in mind is folks who have ADHD or autistic really struggle with executive function. So the ability to plan and execute on tasks is really difficult. And what task requires a lot of planning and executing? Meal planning, preparing our meals. If you think about it, like you have to come up with the recipes, come up with what you're going to make, a grocery list, go shopping, carve out the time to actually do the cooking, decide what you're going to freeze, what's going to store in the fridge, for how long. Can you take this to work? Can you take this on the go? Is there going to be a microwave there? There's just so many executions involved. So it makes it really stressful and really overwhelming for the neurodivergent population when they already struggle with executive functioning. So that's a really big area. And it's also feeding ourselves is the one task that we have to do multiple times a day, every single day of our lives. Like we don't need to exercise 4 times a day. We don't need to brush our teeth 4 times a day. This is something that comes up all the time. So that adds on a lot more stress. So I really try to simplify and break it down and come up with just the easiest, low barrier ways for my clients to feed themselves, so that it frees up their time in their mental space and takes away their stress to be able to focus on other parts of their lives. Because some clients tell me, like, I am stressed about what I'm going to eat all day long, and they just find it so overwhelming. So that's a really big part, is the meal planning. And then with autism, I also see a lot of digestive issues. People who are autistic are about 3 to 5 times more likely to have some digestive issue. That might be allergies, IBS, constipation, diarrhea, bloating. There's also a new like a large scale study recently came out about the connection between ADHD and IBS. That people with ADHD are also higher risk for having irritable bowel syndrome. So I work with clients a lot on this who have constipation. I see this in the kids, I see it in the adults, all ages. And then for folks with ADHD, many of my clients are on stimulant medications, and those medications suppress the appetite. So often in the kid, this could present as they're barely eating, they are not growing, they might even be losing weight, which is really unhealthy for a child. and the doctor's threatening to take them off their stimulant because they're not growing. So that's where I come in to find ways to feed the kid so that they can stay on the stimulant, which is really helping them. And then in terms of adults, I'll see a lot of ADHD adults who are also on stimulant and they have no appetite during the day. They don't eat anything. They're exhausted. They can't really focus properly, which is kind of ironic because the stimulant is supposed to help with that. It does, but not eating also counters it a bit. And then the meds wear off like early evening, late afternoon, and like boom, they're starving. And then they want to eat everything in sight. So that's where the increased risk for binge eating comes in. So I help them come up with an eating schedule to eat on a clock. It's called mechanical eating, where you eat at regular intervals, even if you're not hungry, because we can't really rely on our hunger cues when we're on the stimulant medication. And this helps to reduce the binging at night and also helps give them more energy during the day to be able to do what they need to do. And we can also come up with, a lot of times clients will tell me they feel nauseous and nothing sounds appealing. So we come up with maybe liquid meals, smoothies, safe foods that are not going to worsen the nausea. And I do teach a lot about interoceptive awareness. So in both autism and ADHD, but particularly autism, that ability to recognize when you're hungry, when you're full is suppressed. So I teach them about how to recognize those cues from their body. They might not feel hungry until they're absolutely famished. So I teach them to recognize that before so that it doesn't get to that point. And then I'll have a lot of clients who have ADHD and they also recently were diagnosed with prediabetes or high cholesterol. And they want to work with someone who's neuroaffirming and understands the challenges of like they cannot just follow a meal plan type of thing. They have to provide recommendations that work for their brains and that are going to help them with these medical diagnoses.
You covered a lot of ground. I have a question and I have a comment. So I guess I'll start with the comment first, or the shorter question. For people who have sensory sensitivity to food.
I totally forgot to mention that's another really big one. I work with a lot of selective eaters, a lot of people with food aversion, and coaching parents on how to expand their child's diet, having them get blood work done to check if there's any nutrient deficiencies, and then filling in the gaps there. And then with my adults who have very limited diets, they might have RFID, they might not. They might want to just optimize the nutritional quality of their diet within their safe foods, so the foods that they are able to eat, and I help them with that. But if they tell me I also want to expand, I also want to try new foods, then I help them with that.
So you answered that because I wanted to touch on it. Because I think it's so important. Like some people don't even realize they have RFID. It's something that they're like, what I eat, why am I nauseous? Why am I gagging when I'm eating food and can't get it down? And there's obviously an anxiety component a lot of times with RFID. So maybe they're just told it's just anxiety, but a lot of them could be, what I'm hearing is they also have actual sensory sensitivity. So yes, it might be an anxiety that was now produced because when they eat food, they're not able to swallow. So now they feel anxious about eating, but being able to also work on the sensory part is really important. But I wanted to ask you, for our listeners out there, that women who have a house, have kids, busy life, and are neurodivergent and do struggle, what are some tools? I know that obviously everything is usually set to a person's specific needs, but what are general tools that one of our listeners might or could find helpful to incorporate that you find that works well with a woman running a home, juggling things, and needing to do meal planning and for her family and for herself?
Well, that's a lot. I would say try to make things as simple as possible. I know a lot of women feel pressure. Like one of my clients had told me she thought that she had to make the perfect dinner for her family every single night. And then I had posted one story slide of me having peanut butter on toast with berries for a meal and saying that's okay to have that as a meal. And she started crying when she was telling me that. She's Jackie, that changed my whole perspective. Now I realize it's okay to do charcuterie boards for my kids. It just simple is best. That is best. It does not need to be complicated. Yeah, just do not overcomplicate it. Life is complicated enough. We need to be able to fuel and nourish ourselves in a way that is not stressful, and putting that pressure to make perfect meals every night adds a lot of stress and pressure. So just simple, maybe one night is like DIY taco night. Maybe you make a big batch of a soup and that's a one pot meal and you serve that 2 nights and you keep more in the freezer that you could have for another week. Maybe one night is a charcuterie dinner night. Maybe one night is pizza and frozen veggies. Like just keep it simple. And also there's no shame in using grab and go foods. Like you could get, for a woman on the go, you could bring like a protein shake and a fruit, and that could be a snack or that could be a lunch, and there's no shame in that. So yeah, just simple.
And what about, let's say, yeah, I'm just thinking of like a Jewish woman specifically. I'm thinking of, let's say, the holidays that are coming up, all the cooking, all the meals. Oh, and it's like, it's a lot.
Mhm.
See, the bigger the family, the more the people to feed, the couples that come and they want a nice meal. And how do you help them navigate the anxiety that I could imagine, the anxiety that comes up, and helping them through their executive functioning limitations to have a holiday that feels, obviously it's always stressful, but as least stressful as possible. What are some like tips you would give for that?
I would say like perhaps pick a few meals that you could freeze and make in advance. So then they're ready. And perhaps some of the meals you order food from a prepared place before.
My trick.
Yes. Maybe if you're not having guests, then just have a soup and challah. Keep it simple. You don't need to have a 10-course meal for all the 6 meals of the holiday.
I think that's huge, Jackie. Like just the acceptance of good enough is good enough.
Yeah, yeah. And there's no shame in ordering prepared food. You know, if that's going to make your life easier and if it's within your budget, because it can get costly, then do it. I'm all for that.
I love that. It's really, I think that a lot of our stress a lot of times comes from expectations of what should be like, should look like, what it needs to be. And sometimes just accepting that good enough is good enough. We will get through it. No one's going to go starving. People will get through the holiday. It's going to be okay. I think that's huge because I say if the negative thoughts can impact us negatively, then positive thoughts can impact us positively and emotionally and help us feel good and feel okay and know that things don't have to be perfect or, like you said, a 5-course meal. And I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Use disposable cutlery and plates. Yay, we care about the environment, but also treat yourself to some really nice. Just you don't have to be like washing dishes the whole night after hosting and after having cooked all day. Please cheat. It's really okay.
It's not cheating though.
I love.
It's not.
See, you're right. The fact that I even have to. Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah.
Well
It's not
said.
cheating. It's totally fine. It's also not cheating to use frozen veggies or frozen fruit. I recommend them all the time. I use them all the time. They're awesome.
Yeah. I even think delegating, if you can. I don't know if you have people in the house, but people in the house who can help. Because sometimes like we take it on and we're like, the woman, we're going to do everything, right? Being able to ask for help. I also think like having a calendar app and actually writing in, today I'm going to get this and this done, right? And like, I'm going to do that and that versus like having a whole list of a menu of like, 50 things that have to be made. And then every time you look at it, you're just overwhelmed because it's like, oh my God, it's 50 things. Instead of each day you set aside beforehand, okay, today I'm going to do these 2 dishes. Tomorrow I'm going to do that too. So instead of saying a list of 50 things, you're saying 2 things every day and just breaking it down. That can be less overwhelming.
Exactly.
And count the shopping on with whatever it is, however many days in advance. That's a task that gets checked off and celebrated too. Don't even start to stress about what you're serving until you have to make your shopping list, and going to the supermarket and getting all the ingredients that's not half the battle, but it's the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, it's funny you said that, Reba, because we're publishing a post on how to increase dopamine naturally in ADHD. And one of the tips is to set like these micro goals for yourself. Because when you have these micro goals, it's a little dopamine boost each time. And it just feels so satisfying to like check that off, that it's done. So if you turn the cooking into these small steps and then you like get to check it off, it's going to help give you motivation to keep going.
Yeah. No, I love that. I was actually going to just say that. So you took the words out of my mouth. The mastery of fulfillment thing, which we know for people, even not just with ADHD, but struggling with depression, we know that change something small in your routine that feels accomplishing. And when we do that, we feel motivated to get more done. And as my wise friend, I'm going to give her a shout out. She always tells me good nuggets. She always tells me, instead of eating the elephant in one day, you have it in little bites. So you start small, and then you get little. Because I'm someone who's, oh my God, there's so many things that has to get done. How am I going to start? So you start with step 1, and then you go to step 2, and then you go to step 3. So even like for some, because like I know I'll just like freeze. Oh my God, there's so much to do. And like I'll just procrastinate and then I won't get it done. So being able to, okay, I started with step 1 and then step 2. So I don't have to think of like the whole big picture and go. So yeah, that always sticks to my mind. Okay. We're going to wrap up here. We really appreciate you coming on. As a closing question, what is something you wish your younger self would have known? Anything regarding anything medical or mental health related that you would want to share with others?
And then I want to throw in a special one for Jackie, which is, Jackie, what's your favorite food?
That's a good question. Okay, so I guess I'll answer Reva's first. I really like vegan food. That's not, I mean, yeah, it's not a type. I mean, it's not like a specific dish, but probably my favorite food is like lentil curry, chickpea curries, pasta, cheesy pasta dishes, that type of stuff. And then what I wish my younger self knew is like focus on being consistent and making small changes that you can stick with in the long run. And there's going to be times when you're not consistent and you fall off. But if you persist and just keep getting back on, then that is being consistent. And one of my clients taught me this. She said, persistence is better than consistency, because it's really hard for neurodivergent people to be consistent. But if they persist and fall off and keep getting back, fall off, keep getting back on, then that's really what matters.
I really like that. I actually heard a quote similar to this, which is like, people are always waiting for the motivation to do what they want to do. But in actuality, doing something when you don't have the motivation is motivation.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, so there's never going to be that moment. It's doing it anyways. Okay, thank you for coming on. If anybody wants to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah.
Do you have a website?
I do. You can find me at JackieSilverNutrition.com. I have a very active blog. We post 3 to 4 new blog posts per month. We post easy recipes and we post lots of evidence-based articles about nutrition and neurodivergence. So you can follow me there. I also have a free download. It's called a Neurodivergent Grab and Go Food List. It's really awesome. It's your go-to list of healthier packaged foods that you can pair together for easy meals. So you're welcome to go download that as a free gift. And you could see me on Instagram. I'm at Accessible Wellness. And yeah, and my team and I are available for one-on-one virtual nutrition counseling. We offer free 15-minute discovery call. And the link for that is on the homepage of my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Jackie. This was eye-opening, enlightening, and so important. That's a wrap on this episode of Empowered Podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us. We hope you feel more informed and empowered to take charge of your health and well-being.
Be sure to tune into the next episode when we'll be talking with Noah Fleischacker, Executive Director of Tightlip, about Tightlip Conversation, opening up about the pain below. You won't want to miss out.
If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. Stay connected with us on Instagram, handle @RevitalizePelvicHealth for details about future episodes.
Have a question or topic you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at empower.podcast25@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. And remember, your health, your voice, your power. Until next time.